Thank you very much. It's a great honor to receive this. It's a very pleasant thing to have happen to one, or, if I may be technical, it's very reinforcing. But I don't know what it reinforces. When I heard that I was going to be given this, I began to wonder. Certainly we don't do educational research in order to get prizes or awards. Why do we? And I got to thinking about that, partly because I'd already done a lot of thinking about why students study. And I thought there might be a parallel. As you know, the history of education is a very macabre one. Students have been beaten and punished in various ways when they didn't study. That's gone on for 2,000 or 3,000 years. And although we like to feel that we have changed and found new methods, there are still appeals to bring back the paddle. And in some sense, I'm afraid it's still true that most students study to avoid the consequences of not studying. And that doesn't make for enthusiasm. John Dewey had a better idea. Students learn in daily life from the natural consequences of what they're doing. Why can't you bring daily life into the classroom? And to some extent that works, but I think there's a fundamental flaw there, that education is a preparation for life. It's a preparation for a later period in one's life, and you can't bring one's later life into the classroom. And I think it's no question that in trying to follow up the philosophy of real-life education, various important skills were abandoned or played down. Now, as you know, I am responsible, I suppose, for possibly not great improvement in contriving artificial consequences, artificial rewards or reinforcers, a token economy kind of thing. Every now and then a newspaper article turns up, someone has started to pay students or to give them special gifts at the end of a week if they do well and so on. This immediately is cried bribery, and I suppose it is in a sense, but it's no worse than the old punishing techniques. But I think that I know of a different kind of reward and a different kind of reinforcement that students can get with respect to any subject matter. It doesn't have to be anything which interests them at the moment. That was the trouble with the real-life philosophy. You had to have things of current interest. But there are things about the human organism which are useful in the classroom, and one of them is just the reinforcing effect of success. You do something and it works, no matter what it is. You push something, if it moves, you've been reinforced. You pull something, if it moves, you've been reinforced. And if you read something and answer a question correctly, that itself can be very reinforcing, even though it may not be a question that you particularly care about. And the whole point of programmed instruction was to reconstruct materials in such a way that students were right very often, and moreover, not only right at the moment, but could see themselves getting better. As you work through a program, you work into material which a day or two or a week ago you couldn't have understood, and that itself is a very reinforcing thing. But now, what about doing educational research? Are there parallels? I think there are. I think many of us do something about education because we are punished by the status quo. We want to get away from it. We want to do something better. And so we act to avoid the consequences of not acting. If we don't do anything, education is going to go on as it is now or get worse, with very disastrous consequences for everyone. We also are bribed. We are in a token economy. We get paid for doing educational research. But that doesn't make for enthusiasm by itself. It seems to me that the important thing, again, is success. Seeing that you have actually done something, that you've actually made it easier for students to learn, you've created a situation in which they learn much more speedily, more effectively than ever before. This progress as a reinforcer is something not to be overlooked, because in our daily lives, although it's very important to get that monthly check, the things that really keep us interested as researchers is the discovery of something new, something better, something that is likely to contribute to a better state in the future. And I thought I would try to demonstrate that by a small visual aid that I have brought with me. Exactly 24 years ago this month, at the University of Pittsburgh, I demonstrated a teaching machine. I didn't know at the time, learned later, that Professor Pressey had heralded the Industrial Revolution in education 25 years before. But Pressey's machine was different. His machine assumed that the student had already studied a subject and was now taking a multiple choice examination. And what the machine did, as you know, was to confirm the correct choice or to let the student try again if he made an incorrect one. And as Pressey quite correctly said, this is a machine that tests and teaches, but only after the usual kind of studying had gone on. Now, the machine that I demonstrated 24 years ago at Pittsburgh was different. In it, the student composed an answer. The composed answer was evaluated by the machine, and if the student was correct, more material was presented, another stage in a program. When I described this machine before showing it, there were two professors of education sitting in the audience, and William Dieterlein was sitting behind them. And when I said that I'm now going to describe a machine to teach arithmetic, one professor of education turned to the other and said, "He's kidding." But I wasn't, and I described a machine that did as I said. And I thought it would be interesting for you to see that machine. I brought it along with me because a great deal has happened in 24 years, and I don't know any better way to give you some reinforcement for being educational researchers than to see the kinds of things that are really going on in the field. So if you'll permit me, I'll unwrap this. Pull that paper out, thank you. This is, oh, don't cut that plaque anymore. This is it. It's a wooden box. It has 6 sliders that can be moved into position with numbers 1, 2, 3, 2 to 0. Inside is a tape, punched tape, which has some holes in it. The thing isn't in working order. But if these things are moved to the right position, the tape senses them. Meanwhile, the correct answer has appeared here. The student has properly answered an arithmetical problem, and if he's done so successfully, he can turn this knob, a new problem moves into place. If not, he has to put the tabs back to 0 and try again. Now that had the virtue of allowing the student to compose an answer rather than select one. This is something that very few people understand the importance of. To be able to spot a right answer is very different from coming up with it. And producing the answer is the important thing. And of course it allows the individual to proceed at his own rate. It's designed to program. And that goes back to some early work 25 years earlier with lower organisms, in which we discovered how to shape complex behavior through what we call successive approximation. Well, there it is, the wooden box, handmade practically, and compare it now with what is available today. with modern electronic technique, you can have this kind of thing done for not only numbers but letters and very complicated verbal inputs evaluated instantly by that marvelous technique that we're all familiar with, at least in the hand calculator. Something of the order of $400 or $500, I'm told, will now buy a computer that would give remarkable feedback to students for this kind of work. That seems to me to be a pretty good advance in 24 years, and I think we can take some satisfaction in believing that we are on the way toward more effective techniques. I'm not too happy about what has happened to the software in that period. I don't think the full significance and implications of this kind of thing are realized, but I'm sure that will come, and I'm sure that we are making progress, and that is why it is a joy to me still to be associated with educational research. Thank you very much.